Hey, BassGeek here, and most anglers know during the summer a chatterbait is incredible around grass. But what about out deep on the ledges, the humps, the points, brush piles, deeper grass edges? Well, I've got a little trick for you, and these baits have been selling for years, and to this day, nobody but me talks about them. Let me show you. So we all know that during the summertime, if you have grass, a chatterbait can be an incredible bait. But if you don't have grass in your lakes, a chatterbait is something that generally during the summertime, we tend to put down, especially on the highlands reservoirs, the clear lakes that, you know, I fish. And a big shout out to one of my friends, Sonar Fishing. You need to go check him out. He's a pro angler. And I seen a video by him just the other day actually talking about how up north, for whatever reason, largemouth and smallmouth, they love a chatterbait out in, you know, more open water. But down south, down here, that's just not the case. Unless you're doing this right here. Now, for me, those big chatterbaits, you get out and you fish, we talk about those scrounger head baits. A lot of times out on ledges or out in deep water or for deep schools. But another great bait is these big chatterbaits or bladed jigs. And I love to fish them out around deeper lakes. Like I'll go down a bank if I know the bass are setting out in 20 foot of water, especially like today on this lake. We had a thermocline, and that thermocline is right around 20 feet. So what I'll do is I'll go down banks fishing this over laydowns and stuff that are down there in that 15 to 20 foot range. A lot of times, gosh, man, you'll catch so many big fish doing that. Now, the kicker is be careful doing that, because if you don't have live scope, these things love wood. And as I always say about any bladed jig or chatterbait, they love wood in the wrong way. They'll cost you a lot of money, if you know what I'm saying. But all that being said, one of my favorite ways to fish these big chatterbaits or bladed jigs during the summer is offshore structure, or really any type of structure when it comes to the lake, just on the deeper edge. What I mean by that is humps, points, saddles, ledges. Ledges are probably one of my favorite places to fish if you've got a creek ledge. Otherwise, those big long points or those humps out there, anytime you've got maybe some stumps or some rock or some sort of brush on them, this is a great bait to get out there and throw them on those ledges, those shale beds. Incredible way to go catch some. Even though we'll compare it a lot of times to a scrounger style bait, you're going to fish this bait completely different than you would fish a scrounger during the summer. Now let me show you why blade, size, and trailer is extremely important when you're trying to catch these bass. So there's a lot of different variables when it comes to the bigger, or really I should say the heavier chatterbaits or bladed jigs. Blade size is one, size of the head, size of the hook, size of the bait that you're going to be put on, the trailer that you're going to be putting on there. Of course, the color and all that. But there's really two that are my go-to. One of them I don't have with me right now, but it is the heavier. I believe you can get it in a jackhammer, but Chatterbait makes them in several that go all the way up to 3/4 ounce. And a 3/4 ounce chatterbait is an incredible bait. But sometimes you're going to need something a little bit bigger, especially if you're out there on the ledges in the current or fishing on some deeper humps, points, or ledges. And that's when I really opt for this little bait right here. Now it comes in two different blade sizes. You've got the small blade and you've got the big heavy blade. At least I hope they haven't discontinued this. I bought a bunch years ago, and hopefully they still have them. Now I do believe the last time I looked, they had the direct connect, which they actually have a direct connect. It's just made a little bit different than the old Chatterbait that came directly into it. So I really like it, really starts up fast, really is a great little bait. But this is the Picasso. Now they come in a lot of different sizes, all the way down to your standard sizes, the 3/8, the 1/2, the 3/4. But this one in particular right here, I believe this is either an ounce or it's like an ounce and a quarter. I mean, they get big. They get big. If I remember correctly, they come really close to coming all the way up to 2 ounces. And you can kind of see the difference in the heads right here. This is a much bigger one. I would say this is at least 1.5 ounce head right here with the bigger blade. Blade size is key to me because if I'm fishing out deep, I want that smaller blade. I want that smaller blade because what it's going to do is it's going to keep this bait down. We'll talk about retrieves a little bit later, but that smaller blade is going to help you keep this bait at a deeper depth. Now, when it comes to this humongous blade right here, this blade is going to be able to fish a bigger profile way shallower. You're still going to have that weight, but the profile of this bait is what's important. You're going to couple it with a bigger trailer, maybe even remove the skirt from it so that you can fish it around those bigger bait fish for those bigger bass. This is going to stay a little bit shallower because of that big blade. And another very important thing to get right when it comes to using these bigger than normal chatterbait or bladed jigs is getting the right trailer put on there. You want something that's a little bit bigger than normal. It's one of those deals where I say sometimes matching the hatch is not ideal unless you've already got those big shad that you're trying to match. I like to exceed the hatch just a little bit. This is, I think, a 6.25 inch. This is from Producer Swim Baits. This is called their Pintail. There's a ton of different companies out there that make them in the bigger sizes. You can get away with a bunch of different sizes. You can get away with a 5 inch, and I think it's the Yamamoto Sakamoto or something like that. Anyway, it's a little girthier bait, but not quite as long. They make them in a few different sizes, but you could use those on here. So a bunch of different types from a bunch of different companies. This is one of my favorite. And you want that bait, to me, not to be a paddle tail. You're going to get a little lift out of that. And I like those straight tails because you're going to get a lot of that action, that S action, that back and forth action with this blade. Now you could get away with something like this from Yamamoto, but you gotta know that that hook is a little bit bigger and it's going to come back a little bit farther. I think they make these a little bit bigger, but not much. Now the girth of it, everybody take a drink, if you know the BassGeek drinking game, is going to fit on there very well. But the hook is going to come back quite a bit farther because I think this is only like a 4.5 inch bait. So you're going to want to really upsize the baits that you're going to be using on these bigger chatterbaits. The 3/8 ounce chatterbait, I think this will work perfect on there. But as you get up into those truly bigger size with those bigger weights, it's going to matter. All right, geeks, I want to tell you about Boat Effects. Listen, you guys hear me preach about the steps all the time, but I'm going to tell you today about their graph mounts, especially their console graph mounts. These things have more adjustments than you can imagine. You go to fish the BFLs, you got to have your graphs at a certain height. No problem. These adjust up and down. They tilt back and forth. They adjust side to side. You can get a ton of different configurations as far as your console and your bow up front. That's what makes these mounts so great. The time and effort they put into them, and they're made 100% in the USA. Now, like it couldn't get any better than all the adjustments, they all come with graph locks built into them. So your graphs will be safe. Oh, wait, it gets better because not only that, but I love my Garmin's. And I've got the EchoMap 12s, the 126 SVs. If you have those, you know that they come with a cradle. Well, guess what? they've got the best G-locked graph mount for that you can buy. We've got a video on that. You need to go check it out, by the way. But check this out, and we've got a great discount code right here. Guys, go check Boat Effects out. They make some of the best stuff on the market. So when I'm using these baits, I like a longer rod. A good flipping rod will actually work great, and that's about what this is. This is a TFO option, and it is a 7'6" heavy fast action. It's rated up to 2 ounces. So it'll handle this bait extremely well. Now, I've got that coupled with a VLD10. You're gonna want a reel that's gonna have some good torque to it. And so for me, I like a slower reel. Anything 6'5" is going to work. I'm not gonna go into the 7s very far because I'm fishing this slow and low most of the time. So, you know, 7'1", 7'2" is about as far as we're gonna go. I like that 6'5" to 1 most of the time. Now, by the way, geeks, everything will be linked down in the description below. We don't do memberships or anything like that. We only do the Tackle Warehouse stuff. So if you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. We want to include everybody. Now I throw this on K9 Pro 100% fluorocarbon. I don't put a leader on there. It's just straight spoiled. Now, depending on how deep, think about this like a crankbait, because your line diameter is going to help you keep it down or lift it up. So I'm bouncing back and forth between 12 and 15 pound test on this, depending on how deep or around how much cover I'm throwing these big heavy chatterbait slash bladed jigs. Now, even though most anglers are thinking about fishing this out here deep, just like you would fish a chatterbait anywhere, it's really going to be a lot different. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, it's just like a scrounger. Very different retrieves from a scrounger. The retrieves are going to be a lot more like a bucktail jig or a flutter spoon. So retrieve number 1, probably my favorite retrieve if I know that they're tight to the bottom, is I'm going to cast this out there just on the point, wherever I know those bass are. Try to make the longest cast I can, like we talked about. You know, rod is important in that, like we talked about rod, reel, line. Make that long cast. I'm going to let this bait sink to the bottom, and then I'm just going to crank it real hard, about 4 or 5 turns. Let it come up, and I'm not going to give it line. I'm going to let that bait fall back down to the bottom. I'm going to let it sit there. Now, here's the key to this retrieve. The same thing when it comes to a hair jig. Time is everything. So in other words, sometimes those bass's strike window is going to be a little shorter if it's really hot. So only 2-3 turns of the rod is going to be key, and then you're going to let it fall. So that pause when it's on the bottom is going to be the next key. You may want it as soon as it hits bottom to take off again if those bass are extremely active. You might want that bait to hit bottom, sit there for 2, 3, 5 seconds, and then reel up again. You just got to play with that stuff to see what mood those bass are in. Now, the next retrieve is really no different than a lot of chatterbait retrieves. It's just going to be hopping. This is where I kind of compare it to a flutter spoon. Now, it's not going to flutter as much, but you're going to get a little bit of flutter out of that trailer as long as you're using the right trailer. It's one of the reasons why I don't like on these baits, especially a swim bait. You're just going to get a paddle tail, going to get a lot of movement. It's kind of going to cancel everything out. I like that tail just juking and jiving, just, you know, side to side action. Now, the key to this retrieve is you're going to want to make sure that you change your lifts. So you may want a slow lift, not very high, or you may want to rip up. So change that back and forth. Maybe a little slow lift, let it fall, a little slow lift. It may be a hard and fast, let it fall hard and fast. And again, it's going to be one of those things where changing the amount of time you let it set on the bottom is also going to be something you're going to have to play with. More active, it's going to be a rip, hit bottom, rip. Less active, it's going to be a pull, let it sink, pull. Now, when it comes to hook set, these things are huge. Side set, they've got huge hooks in them too. Side set, keep your rod tip down and drag them to the boat. Boat hop them, don't let them jump. If they start to jump, reel faster. If you see them coming up, crank, 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 crank. Stick your rod tip even in the water if you have to. Don't play them. Seen so many people lose so many fish the first time they fish these because they're playing them. Don't do it. Get them in the net, boat hop them, whatever you got to do. Don't take the time to get down there and get them on the thumb because 90% of the time they're getting off. Now, if you want to learn how to fish a flutter spoon, whether you're on the bank or a creek, no matter where you're at, listen, you need to go check this video out right here. Otherwise, questions, comments in the comment section below. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Make ssure you ring that bell. Be part of the 100% Watch Squad. And you geeks rock.